The story begins in a high school classroom where 4 students were seated. 3 of them chatted animatively, while another student named Park Hanjun sat alone. Suddenly, someone entered the class, catching Hanjun's attention. It was Choi Sejong. He questioned the others about whether they were planning to welcome him or not. The 3 students greeted Sejong warmly, and a blonde girl asked him about the sales of the new chapter. Sejong proudly shared that he had sold a significant amount, a record-breaking 48 million won. His friends were excited about his achievement and asked for a tree over the weekend. However, Sejong's focus shifted to Park Hanjun. He mentioned having something important to do before agreeing to a treat. Unexpectedly, he grabbed Hanjun's head and forcefully slammed it against the desk, questioning Hanjun's audacity to ignore him. While continuing to beat Hanjun, Sejong inquired if Hanjun had purchased the new chapter he had uploaded. Sejong believed Hanjun wanted his business to fail. Despite the brutal assault, Hanjun remained silent. Sejong, looking at Hanjun's face, commented that even an animal would understand his message by now. Concerned, the blonde girl asked what Sejong would do if Hanjun complained to the teacher. Hanjun, battered but resolute, revealed that he had already given money to the teacher to be on his side. Sejong, angered by this revelation, punched Hanjun and warned of a potential bloodbath if the teacher intervened. After subjecting Hanjun to this brutality, Sejong menacingly stared at Hanjun's face. Undeterred, Hanjun shot Sejong a defiant look. Sejong taunted him, trying to provoke anger. He told him that if he reported him, he was confident in seeking compensation for the damages. However, he was poor now because he had acted disrespectfully towards Chien-soo Kim, and it messed up his life. He didn't have anything to pay for compensation. While getting beaten, he thought about an incident that happened 2 years ago when a high school gang called Nexus, with a ring marked with an X, grew all over the country. Hanjun started a war with their leader, Kim Chun-soo. Just when he thought he had won, Nexus filed a lawsuit against him. Their consistent lies manipulated and fabricated the situation and evidence. As a result, Hanjun lost the case, and his father's gym, to which he had dedicated his whole life, had to be sold to pay for the settlement money. After that, Hanjun promised himself that he would never fight again. He apologized to his father while crying. His father consoled him, saying he shouldn't be crying. Hanjun was walking on the street when 3 boys passed nearby him. One of them recognized him and told the others about him. The strong one among them acted disrespectfully and approached him, asking if he recognized the ring in his hand. After a while, they took him to an empty street and beat him up. The strong guy called him useless and weak, wondering how someone like him could have fought Nexus. He also spoke ill of his father. Hearing this, Hanjun grabbed his leg and gave him a scary look. The strong guy looked shocked, and Hanjun immediately apologized for his recent behavior. The strong guy couldn't understand why he got scared when Hanjun gave him a fierce look. Feeling pathetic, he grabbed a stick and started hitting Hanjun, asking why he was squirming. Hanjun broke every stick used against him. Satisfied, they walked away, leaving him behind. Suddenly, a well-dressed stranger approached the beaten guy. Sitting next to him, he questioned why Hanjun endured such treatment. Worried about having to pay again, the beaten guy thought the stranger might help with legal fees. The stranger suggested leaving the attackers half-paralyzed, offering to cover the costs with a bag full of money. Despite the option to file a lawsuit, the stranger proposed beating up the attackers and using the money for compensation. Hanjun asked how long it would take, and the stranger revealed his desire to harm Chien-soo Kim, but said too many people were listening. Eyeing the money, the beaten guy expressed surprise and regretted beating Hanjun if he knew about the cash. Hanjun elbowed him, breaking his jaw, and declared it would take him 4 seconds to defeat the attackers. The terrified duo pleaded to stop, claiming they hadn't beaten him earlier. Ignoring their pleas, Hanjun continued to beat them. In private, Hanjun asked the stranger about his motives. Revealing himself as Oh Jun-woo, Korea's youngest successful CEO, he showed Hanjun an article about Chien-soo Kim's seemingly perfect life. Finding it ridiculous, Oh Jun-woo expressed his desire to ruin Chien-soo's life using underhanded methods, wanting to mess with both his life and mind. He offered to cover all expenses for this mission and to support Hanjun financially. Hanjun questioned why Oh Jun-woo hated Chien-soo, to which Oh Jun-woo cryptically replied that the reason would become apparent over time. For now, the crucial thing was that they shared a common enemy. Hanjun entered the class as Sejong asked his classmates to buy his new merchandise online. Hanjun, a Nexus member, instilled fear in the class. Hanjun approached Sejong, who questioned why he was staring. Sejong, almost daring another beating, received a punch in the face from Hanjun. The entire class watched the unfolding confrontation. Hanjun grasped the idea that this world operated on money and power. Sejang, who used to fear nothing due to his unmatched strength, now realized the threat Hanjun posed. Hanjun seemed like a different, formidable breed, a wild beast. Yet everything changed when Cheon-soo Kim entered the picture. Kim dismantled Hanjun's life through a lawsuit, seizing his money and bringing him to his knees. Sejang recognized the true ruler of the world, money. In response, he initiated an online store, coercing his classmates to purchase his products, amassing wealth. Hanjun became nothing more than a subdued beast, allowing Sejang to reclaim his position at the top of the hierarchy. However, Sejang found himself baffled as Hanjun, once tamed, now beat him relentlessly. Hanjun fractured bones, thwarting Sejang's attempts to counterattack. Confused and battered, Sejang's friends watched in terror as the beating continued. The other classmates were happy to see a bully getting bullied by someone. A few recorded the fight. Sejang felt humiliated as Hanjun threw him against the wall, making him hit it. Blood dripped from Sejang's mouth onto the floor. He asked Hanjun why he was doing this. Hanjun came close, giving him a scary look. Sejang flinched and asked his friend Joe for help. Joe looked but couldn't do anything. Sejang grinned at his useless friend, took out his phone and started recording. He warned Hanjun that he had no money left and wouldn't escape a lawsuit this time. Hanjun kicked him in the face, leaving a shoe print and causing his nose to bleed. Sejang thought he might die if the kicks continued, so he ran out of the classroom. Hanjun followed. While running, Sejang tried to calm him, thinking that Hanjun hadn't fought in the last 2 years, so he couldn't be a gym enthusiast. Sejang entered a room and asked Sung for help. Sung, stopping his workout, asked about Sejang's injured face. Sejang begged him to save his life. Hanjun arrived. Sejang offered Sung 1,000,000 won to knock down Hanjun. Sung, considering it insufficient, demanded 2,000,000. Sejang agreed, desperate to save himself. Sung approached Hanjun, explaining it wasn't personal. He needed money for a sports college. Hanjun asked if he wanted to study sports science, and Sung said yes. Hanjun gave him the money, advising him not to strain for this. He told Sung to take the money and leave. Sung happily accepted, declaring that Sejang belonged to Hanjun. He threw Sejang out of the class. A passing teacher saw this and questioned what was happening. Seeing Hanjun, he took them to his office. The teacher asked Hanjun if he was a street gangster, questioning why he brutally beat his classmate. He reminded Hanjun of a second chance given 2 years ago, saving him from expulsion. However, this time he warned there would be no mercy. Sejang smirked at him, seeing the teacher scolding him. Hanjun stood up from his seat and punched Sejang in the face. The teacher was shocked and asked if he had lost his mind. The teacher grabbed Hanjun and tried to hold him back. Sejang realized it was his end. While Hanjun threw punches at him, a man in a suit entered the room and asked him to stop. The teacher asked who he was. The M1 Kim introduced himself and said he was an associate lawyer at the KR firm. The teacher asked what business he had there. At night in Jungwoo's office, Hanjun asked how he did that. He said his teacher started groveling at him after talking with the lawyer. Sejang got expelled on the spot. Jungwoo said it was easy for him to do. He told Hanjun that Sejang just paid the price for harassing him in the past. The teacher was involved in immoral acts. The lawyer showed him the evidence, and the teacher's tail was safely tucked between his legs. He said he wouldn't crush the teacher now, as having him on their side was necessary to send Sejang to juvie. Once his work was over, the teacher would also be sent to jail. Jungwoo said he didn't pay his taxes to support teachers like him. He asked Hanjun if he enjoyed fighting after a long time. Hanjun replied he was kind of thankful. Jungwoo said there was too much left to be done before he got thanks from him. At his home, Sejang was angry and throwing his things away. He said he wouldn't go down quietly and decided to murder Hanjun. The next day, he walked down the road in a hoodie and stopped in front of a 3-story building. The door opened a bit, and someone inside asked him who he was. He introduced himself and mentioned that he was there to check on the progress. A boy opened the door and excitedly told him that he arrived just in time because Jin Song was inside. In the room, some guys were beating up another man. Jin Song Kwang, the leader of the runaway boys, invited him in. The guy being beaten called him names, blaming him for his situation. Jin Song hit the guy on the back and told him to be quiet. He ordered his boys to take the man away from the scene. Jin Song asked why he was there since he never came in person before. He explained that he had a more significant request. Jin Song asked how big it was, and he replied that he would pay 10 million won for it. A guy in a red shirt said they didn't need to hear more, just the name of the person bothering him. Jinsong hit the guy with a bat, telling him to stop acting giddy, and said he understood the seriousness of the situation. He asked who the person was, and he mentioned it was Hanjun Park. Jinsong immediately told him to leave after hearing Hanjun's name. He asked if he looked dumb, as ordinary means wouldn't harm Hanjun. He offered 10 million upfront and promised 20 million if they succeeded. Jinsong and his boy were stunned by the offer. After a laugh, they sealed the deal. The car stopped in front of an old house in the city. Junwoo went inside, took off his shoes at the doorstep, and walked in. He apologized for being away for so long, explaining that he was busy. Bringing fried chicken with him, he sat on the couch and mentioned how small chicken has become these days, almost like a sparrow. While talking to someone, Junwoo shared that his dad used to make the best fried chicken in town, and he was craving it. The last time they had it was about 2 years ago, and it felt like just yesterday. Sadly, he mentioned he had to leave again soon. Before leaving, Junwoo mentioned that the things he had been working on were finally coming together. As he left, Byung-won informed him that Sejang was making a move and asked if he should take care of it. Junwoo replied that Byung-won knew his style. He never made things simple and clean. Hanjun's father received a call from a gym offering him a job as a trainer, and he was surprised by the salary package. After the call, he praised his son for having a good job and wondered how things were suddenly turning out well. Hanjun, standing up, announced he was going to the gym. His father reminded him not to be late as they planned to have a nice dinner. Downstairs, Hanjun received a call from Junwoo, who warned him about Sejang's move. Junwoo informed Hanjun that Sejang had hired some high school runaways as mercenaries. He asked Hanjun to call him if they came looking for him. Hanjun replied that there was no need, as the guys were already outside his home. Jinsong, one of them, smirked and expressed his happiness at seeing Hanjun. Confused, Hanjun asked him who he was. Meanwhile, a van came speeding toward him. The guy in the red shirt was steering it, trying to hit him. Hanjun glared at him and immediately started running towards the van. Everyone looked at him in shock. Hanjun kicked the van, terrifying the guy inside, who turned the wheel to the left. This caused the van to flip, and he fell behind it. His head hit the road and blood started to flow. The runaway boys were pleased to see him hurt himself. Their boss praised it as a brilliant move. Hanjun got up, expressing his anger. The boys took their positions, ready to beat him. Jinsong thought Hanjun had been lying low for a while but still had his intelligence and agility. However, he was now injured. Suddenly, people from nearby buildings woke up due to the accident noise and started watching from their windows. Jinsong ordered his boys to get in the van, and they quickly left. Hanjun chased after them. The guys in the van laughed at him, but their laughter turned into screams when he caught up. Hanjun jumped over the van and punched the back glass, breaking it. He grabbed a guy by his shirt and pulled him out. They both fell onto the road. One guy asked Jinsong what to do about their fallen comrade. Jinsong told them to leave him and go, so they drove away, leaving their friend behind. Hanjun demanded to know where the others had gone. The guy said he didn't know, and Hanjun grabbed him, giving him a good beating. But that guy said he wouldn't tell him, no matter how much he beat him. Hanjun didn't hold back either and threw hits at his face. Back at their apartment, those runaway guys celebrated their work. Jinsong appreciated his boys for their excellent work. Sejang looked disappointed. He slammed the glass on the table and asked Jinsong why they were celebrating when he and his men couldn't catch him. He said they should all do the money's worth before reveling, and asked what they would do if Hanjun came there. All those boys started looking at each other's faces for the answer. Jinsong said he could understand what Sejang was trying to say, but Hanjun must be very smart to find them first. He put his arm on his shoulder and said such feedback didn't stoke his zest for work. He grabbed his glass and told him that there was a Korean saying, "You do not use a poultry knife to hunt a boar." He broke his glass and said they were hunting a tiger now. He brought a piece of that broken glass near his face and said there was no knife to hunt a tiger. But that's how their ancestors hunted the tiger, by unleashing a pack of punks and dogs after him. Tigers are edgy. They love a quiet environment by nature, but dogs torment them for as long as it takes until they die of exhaustion. And he was following the same strategy right now, exhausting him and driving him delirious to his bitter death. Suddenly, something struck the steel door heavily. All those boys wondered what it was. They thought about who could put a dent in their door. The striking sound increased. Jinsong asked somebody to go check who was at the door. A guy looked through the door hole and told others it was Hanjun outside. All of them got shocked to know that. Jinsong asked them to relax, as even Hanjun couldn't break the iron door. He said Hanjun would get tired and go back home eventually. After a while, the sound of the door strike stopped. The guy in the red shirt said Hanjun must have gotten scared and left to avoid fighting them all. However, Hanjun climbed through the window, broke the glass, and entered the room. Jinsong thought it was ridiculous to climb 3 floors and break in. Hanjun used a rod and his fists to beat up 3 of them and asked who wanted to be next. Sejang gritted his teeth, anticipating something bad. He noticed Jinsong wasn't terrified. He remembered how they easily handled Sung Paik before. Losing 3 pawns might have been due to a surprise raid. It likely had tactics and moves they were used to. If they brought their A game, they could win. Jinsong ordered his boys to take him down, and they moved in for a group attack. Hanjun dodged the first attack, made a guy trip, and smashed him against the wall. Another guy swung a bat from behind. But Hanjun bent forward to avoid it, grabbed the guy by his neck, and smashed his head on the floor. The guy in the red shirt tried to attack, but the second boy grabbed Hanjun's arms. He asked his friend to finish Hanjun, hitting him with the bat. Thinking he had gotten rid of Hanjun, the guy was shocked to see his broken bat. Hanjun threw him out of the window, and he fell onto the road below. At the same time, a biker arrived, stopped near him, removed her helmet, and looked at him. She went near him and asked if Hanjun was up there. He thought she was an angel. He told her he was up there and asked for her number, so she hit him in the head with her helmet. After that, she sat on her bike and called Junwoo. She told him about Hanjun and that he was fighting and breaking into a house there. He asked her about the location. She said she couldn't decide which designer bag to buy and was so confused that she couldn't tell him about Hanjun's location. Junwoo understood that she was asking for money, so he sent her some. She became happy and gave him the exact address. Now it was just Jinsong and Hanjun left. Jinsong admitted that he couldn't beat him and asked why he was after him. He thought Hanjun needed something from him. He asked Hanjun to say the name, and that thing would be his possession. In return, he could let him go safely. Hanjun said he was thinking wrong, grabbed him by his neck, and lifted him. Jinsong choked and beat him without thinking with the bat. Hanjun threw him to the ground and punched him in the face. Suddenly, a guy entered through the door and saw all this mess. He grabbed Hanjun's arm and asked him to stop destroying his house. He asked why he was fighting in his house instead of on the street, explaining that he was already suffering enough as an orphan. Gangsters frequented his house as if they owned it, and now he was running everything there. He cried louder, asking why all this bad stuff was happening to him. Meanwhile, Junwoo entered the house and said destroying it was unnecessary. The kid asked Junwoo if he told him to break into his house. Junwoo said he would pay for the damage. The guy asked for 10 million won, but he happily accepted when Junwoo offered him 50 million won. Jinsong saw a chance and tried to escape through the window. He jumped, but Hanjun caught him and said he wasn't finished with him. Jinsong, realizing he was in trouble, pulled out a knife and stabbed Hanjun's hand. Hanjun let him go, and Jinsong thought he had saved himself, but he injured his shoulder. He got up and ran away. Junwoo commented on Jinsong's strong will to survive. A guy who overheard the situation laughed at them, saying they stepped on a mine. Both Junwoo and Jinsong were confused. The guy revealed that Jinsong's father, Haryong Hwang, was the chairman of PJ, a shipping company. He warned them about how ruthless a seaman could be, especially one with such wealth and power. Junwoo, initially concerned, later smirked and acknowledged the potential problem. Jinsong, injured, stumbled into his house. His father, Haryong Hwang, asked who did this to him. Jinsong asked his father to take care of 2 guys for him. Haryong warned him about the consequences, but Jinsong insisted. Haryong asked what motivated his choice, and Jinsong explained that he let 2 unworthy guys harm him. Haryong appreciated his son's courage and told him to ask for the favor properly. Jinsong wiped his eyes, looked at his father, and promised not to rest until he saw the 2 guys dead. Haryong admired his son's determination, called someone, and ordered 2 steel barrels. They wanted to teach some adventurous teenagers a lesson. After a while, some cars headed toward their location and stopped outside a construction building. Haryong and his guys went inside the building to confront those 2. Junwoo found it amusing to involve a group of tough guys in high school conflict. He mentioned he didn't want an early death because he had different plans for his life. He asked if Mr. Hwang wanted to know about his plans. Haryong was surprised by this change in tone and realized it was Mr. Oh. He wondered why Mr. Oh was there. Suddenly, he received a call informing him that all OG affiliates were canceling the shipping deal for the next quarter, following Chairman Oh's order. Haryong was upset to hear this news. Jungwoo looked at him and smirked. Haryong got on his knees and begged for forgiveness. His guys asked him what had happened all of a sudden, but he ordered them to be quiet. Jungwoo smiled, expressing his satisfaction that Haryong understood quickly. He instructed him to send his men away immediately, and all the cars left the site. Jungwoo sat on a chair while Haryong remained bowed in front of him. Haryong explained that the shipping deal meant a lot to his company, serving as its lifeline. Without the partnership with OJ, his company couldn't last a quarter. Jungwoo expressed his desire to renew the contract but emphasized that he took his public image seriously. He pointed out that having a gang boss's father as a partner didn't fit OJ's desired image. Haryong proposed sending his son abroad for college and never returning to Korea. However, Jin-song, Haryong's son, questioned why he should leave the country. His dad punched him and told him to be quiet. Jungwoo laughed at the situation and advised Haryong to stop. He suggested an alternative form of discipline that could help his ship set sail. Haryong agreed to whatever it was. Jungwoo revealed that Haryong's son had cost him 50 million today, and to work off the debt, he would have him work on fishing boats. While seated in Jungwoo's office, Hanjun mentioned that Jungwoo seemed like a villain. Jungwoo, with a smile, acknowledged that their dealings were not entirely clean, so being called a villain was fair. He cautioned Hanjun against getting involved in issues that money could resolve, emphasizing the futility of getting hurt over such matters. Hanjun responded that he wasn't hurt. Unexpectedly, a girl who had previously been on a motorcycle touched Jungwoo's back and pointed out a bruise. Jungwoo then introduced her as Seo-yeon Choi, informing Hanjun that she would be working with them. Despite being an Instagram celebrity, she was also an informant for their team. Seated next to Hanjun, she remarked on his appearance, expressing surprise that he didn't look like a trucker, to which Hanjun asked if she was serious. Jungwoo intervened, advising her not to mix business with pleasure. He directed everyone's attention to the task at hand, emphasizing the need to plan their next move. Seo-yeon suggested a strategy involving Hanjun defeating everyone, but Jungwoo pointed out that Nexus had grown significantly, and Hanjun alone couldn't take them down. Jungwoo proposed reinforcing their combat force, presenting a file on the table and mentioning that a guy from Dongyeon High might join them. Hanjun inquired if Jungwoo was referring to Dongyeon Kim, to which Jungwoo confirmed. Dongyeon Kim, the former number 1 of Dongyeon High, had fought against Nexus with Jungwoo in the past, but the war had left him with a ruined life and knee, preventing him from running. Despite his condition, Jungwoo argued that they still needed him. Hanjun, speechless, received Jungwoo's suggestion to approach the situation professionally and mend ties with Dongyeon while dealing with the Nexus threat at Dongyeon High School. Meanwhile, at Dongyeon High School, Nexus members were holding a meeting. They were told that Sejang had been sent to jail due to his history of pressuring others to buy things. As a result, Imyeol High School would no longer send any tribute. The members shared their opinions, saying Sejang didn't understand politics. One suggested they retaliate against whoever put him in jail since Sejang was still part of Nexus. The informant revealed that Hanjun Park was the one who sent Sejang to jail. Jaeong Min, the number 1 of Dongyeon High School, was shocked to hear this. He asked if Hanjun hadn't promised to stay low. Suddenly, someone entered the room with breaking news about Hanjun joining their school. Jaeong smirked, surprised, and asked for all the details. Hanjun entered the school, declaring his intention to destroy them all. The teacher welcomed him and introduced him to the class, assigning him a seat in the back row. All eyes were on him as he walked to his seat. His benchmate, Yumin Jo, expressed happiness to meet Hanjun and mentioned hearing stories about him. Yumin proposed a fair one-on-one fight, but Hanjun remained silent. Yumin wondered if Hanjun needed provocation to act and questioned if he looked like a joke. In response, Hanjun elbowed Yumin's face, and Yumin fell backward. The class watched, and it became a lively scene. Meanwhile, Seo-yeon, sitting outside, expressed uncertainty about recruiting Dongyeon Kim, considering the many uninjured muscular guys. Jungwoo, inside the batting cage, dismissed Charity and praised Dongyeon Kim's tenacity. Some people focused on his small stature. What they missed was his determined spirit in fighting Nexus. Unyielding spirits tend to break instead of bending. She got bored with his wise words and questioned why they'd recruit someone with a broken knee. Jungwoo responded that even if someone breaks, they might not fully recover, but they gain a new sharp edge. Seo-yeon suggested Jungwoo should write a book about his wise talks. Hanjun walked through the corridor, and all the boys stared at him. He glanced at Dongyeon from the opposite side, carrying snacks. One guy kicked him in the stomach, and he fell. The aggressor grabbed his hair, asking why a snack errand took more than 5 minutes. He claimed he lost money because he bet on Dongyan making it in time. Another guy in the class pointed out that Dongyan was already limping and the daily beatings weren't making him faster. The bully hit him again, insisting he should fear him more than the risk of getting crippled. Hanjun witnessed it, but did nothing. Seo-yeon realized Junwoo would recruit Dongyan. She suggested it would be easier to bribe him with money. Junwoo said it might work if Kim was the type to fall for money. He explained that he fought Nexus 2 years ago because Hanjun did. There was no other reason. While this idea might seem absurd, fighting a friend's battle and risking injury, Junwoo believed a friend's war was as good as his own, and a friend taking a hit was like him taking a hit. Dongyan sat on a bench on the school ground, trying to flick his lighter, but it wasn't working. He threw it away. Hanjun approached, mentioning it had been a while since he saw him. Dongyan heard about his arrival and asked if he was there to cause trouble. Hanjun said it was impossible as Nexus had become much stronger. They were unmatched in both numbers and financial power. Hanjun, however, insisted that this time they would win. While walking away, Dongyan told him they didn't fight to lose last time either. It didn't stop him from ending up like this. Hanjun turned his head and said he would see them winning this time. Jeongkil watched them from a window and said Hanjun was stupid for teaming up with a cripple. He ordered his boys to get ready to take him down. Later that night, Dongyan visited a doctor. The doctor appreciated his commitment to physical therapy, but warned that it might not be enough. He advised Dongyan to see a surgeon immediately, emphasizing that the longer he waited, the less likely a full recovery would be. The cost was high, but it was nothing compared to losing his mobility for good. Dong Hyan said nothing and left the hospital. It was raining outside. Jeongkil approached him and asked about the doctor's visit, inquiring if he was getting better. Dongyan asked him what he wanted. Jeongkil mentioned their past friendship, expressing sadness at seeing him in this condition. However, he quickly dismissed it as a joke and claimed to be checking on their former number one. Coming closer, he mentioned witnessing Dongyan's secret meetings with Hanjun. He wanted to confirm if Dongyan had recovered, suggesting he would break his leg again if he had. Dongyan asked why he came alone, knowing he couldn't take him alone if Dongyan was recovered. Jeongkil kicked his leg, making him fall, and asked if Dongyan still thought Jeongkil was his sidekick. He reminded Dongyan of Hanjun kneeling and getting beaten. Dongyan brought up Jeongkil's betrayal and joining Nexus. Jeongkil didn't deny it and said Dongyan was making it sound like he was evil. Dongyan asked if he wasn't. Jeongkil replied that he could think what he wanted and be a loyal hero, but he would rather be an evil than a loyal hero limper. This time, he might not be able to be a loyal hero. The following day, it was still raining. Hanjun sat in the classroom, and Jeongkil made an announcement, stating that all Nexus members in the school had heard that Hanjun Park, who fought Nexus 2 years ago, had transferred to this school and threatened to break them. He asked him if he was ready to get beaten again. He said he knew Hanjun was strong, but had never seen him fall in one-on-one combat. However, he had no interest in one-on-one combat as he wasn't stupid. He asked everyone to get in formation and attack Hanjun. But when they all reached there, they saw Hanjun had thrown some boys out of the window. Hanjun had already beaten those in his class. He said, "Let's see who the game is," and started beating them all alone. Dongyan was still sitting in the classroom. Hanjun was taking down all of those freaks alone. One of them got terrified and said he would beat all of them. They put him in a lock and beat him together, but Hanjun resisted and beat them to free himself. He kept hitting them mindlessly and moved forward. Soon he got rid of all those in the corridor, but a whole army of gangsters was waiting for him. One of them asked if he was already tired. Hundreds of them were all over the school, ready to beat him. Dongyan heard someone saying that Hanjun was exhausted and they were about to win. He wondered why Hanjun was doing this after all that trouble. Seo-yeon entered the classroom and asked if he was not enjoying his peace while his friend was out there fighting. Dongyan asked her who she was. She replied that she was Hanjun's coworker. Dongyan said he couldn't fight. She replied that she was not going to make him. She was there to tell him that Hanjun already knew the whole school would charge him. Their boss had instructed him to escape immediately, but he disregarded the advice and declared that he would confront the situation head-on. He felt the need to prove something to Dongyan. Dongyan recalled Hanjun expressing confidence in their victory. Hanjun successfully defeated all the gangsters. Jeongkil descended the stairs, applauding, and remarked that Hanjun never failed to impress. However, he warned that they were about to make things difficult for him. They charged at Hanjun, but Donyeon intervened, attacking one of them with a wiper stick. He questioned why Hanjun wanted to do all the cool things alone. Jeoncheol welcomed Donyeon's presence, stating that now they would take both of them down. As they advanced, Donyeon broke the stick in two and prepared for the fight. One of the guys mocked Donyeon's attempts to look cool, but Donyeon skillfully blocked a punch with one stick and countered with the other. Another guy grabbed him, but Donyeon broke free, using his head to hit the attacker's back. He continued to beat the opponents with the sticks. Simultaneously, Hanjun faced tough resistance from the remaining foes, using his fists effectively. Together, they cornered the boys and defeated them one by one. The boys were astonished that individuals with a disability and exhaustion could overpower them so severely. They couldn't comprehend the source of their strength. Donyeon apologized to Hanjun, admitting that he had resented him for what he had become, but acknowledged that it wasn't his fault. He confessed to needing someone to blame and was relieved to see his friend back. Suddenly, Jeoncheol lunged at them, expressing his intention to crush them. Donyeon assured Hanjun that he would handle Jeoncheol. They evaded Jeoncheol's attack and made a run for the door. Jeoncheol pursued them, questioning if their current strategy was their best move. Hanjun seized Jeoncheol by the shirt and threw him to the ground. As Jeoncheol got up, Donyeon locked the door, trapping him inside. Hanjun requested a minute, and Donyeon assured Jeoncheol that it wouldn't take long to defeat him. Jeoncheol cynically remarked that they had made another foolish choice, but Donyeon called him pathetic for having no friends. Jeoncheol was really angry, so he went to punch Donyeon, but Donyeon defended himself by stabbing Jeoncheol's hand with a stick and hitting him with it. Jeoncheol tried to grab Donyeon, lifted him, and threw him into a glass door, breaking it. He laughed and said Donyeon had no weapon now. Donyeon, determined, took off his shirt, wrapped it around his arm, and threw it on Jeoncheol's face. He pulled Jeoncheol down and started punching him. Jeoncheol countered by pulling Donyeon's leg, causing him to lose balance. Jeoncheol locked his leg to stop him from escaping and reminded him that they were no longer the same people they used to be. He then hit Donyeon's injured leg hard, causing him to scream in pain. Jeoncheol took a moment to catch his breath while Donyeon held his injured knee. Jeoncheol warned him that he would pay for rebelling. As Jeoncheol walked away, Donyeon insisted it wasn't over. Jeoncheol punched him, threw him into the glass again, and left him on the ground. But Donyeon wasn't finished. He picked up broken glass and cut Jeoncheol's face. Jeoncheol, concerned, saw the cuts on his own face. Donyeon cut the other side of Jeoncheol's face and explained he couldn't lose, especially since he couldn't face Hanjun if he allowed Jeoncheol to walk all over him. Donyeon beat Jeoncheol, leaving him almost defeated. As Donyeon left the room, he found Hanjun taking care of the others. Both of them were exhausted but happy about their victory. The school's chairman, Donyeon Hai, arrived and was disappointed to see the school in such bad shape. He ordered his men to bring Hanjun to him. At that time, the lawyer from the Taipei firm arrived and suggested that the kids settle their differences through a mature conversation. They gathered in a room, and the chairman commented on Hanjun's ability to afford a lawyer from that firm, emphasizing that the country operates by laws and wealth doesn't grant the right to harm others. The lawyer, cutting to the chase, handed the chairman 3 suitcases, promising a pleasant surprise upon opening. The chairman, skeptical, remarked that big firms excel in talk and insisted he only accepts money. Byung-won opened the suitcases, revealing papers and audio files. The chairman, confused, asked about the contents, expecting money. Byung-won presented evidence of the school's embezzlement, speculative estate purchases, and tax fraud with headlines for the next day's news. Concerned, the chairman warned Byung-won about potential danger, referencing previous incidents involving gangsters threatening the KP firm. Unfazed, Byung-won asserted that his demise wouldn't be the end and hinted at the foundation rivalry, adding an accusation of murder abetment. Realizing the gravity, the chairman ordered his men to put away their knives and asked Byung-won what he wanted. Smirking, Byung-won simply demanded the chairman hand over control of the school. Outside the emergency ward's ICU, Hanjun and Seo-hyeon observed the aftermath. Seo-hyeon marveled at Hanjun's seemingly unharmed state after facing the entire school. Hanjun, in disbelief, pointed out the bruises covering his body, questioning if she couldn't see them. At that time, the doctor emerged from the ICU, expressing surprise at Donyeon's resilience despite the pain. Dongyan had come in a pretty bad state, and the doctor informed them that they needed to monitor his progress, but the surgery had been successful. Meanwhile, Junwoo sat in a hotel lobby, reading an article about Dongyan High and feeling happy about its success. On the flip side, a reporter thanked Cheon-soo Kim for the interview, finding it inspiring for students. Approaching Cheon-soo, Junwoo found it odd that their team schedule rarely got cancelled for a mere magazine interview. Cheon-soo, looking at Junwoo, acknowledged the interview had been arranged by him and expressed honor at meeting Mr. Oh. Junwoo reminded him of their past, but Cheon-soo, now a CEO, considered it history. Despite mutual respect, Junwoo accused Cheon-soo of clinging to the past and taking over Dongyan High. Cheon-soo denied understanding and left when Junwoo had nothing more to say. After a tense encounter, Junwoo felt relieved when Cheon-soo left. Junwoo had worried about being intimidated but realized it was unnecessary. As Cheon-soo left, Junwoo called after him, challenging him to maintain his fake smile next time. Later, Cheon-soo received a call about Hanjun and Junwoo. He mentioned they had shot out a flare and were taking action against the two. He anticipated the upcoming conflict to be the biggest in Korean history. Meanwhile, important members of Nexus gathered for an urgent meeting in a Seoul City hotel. Tae-soo Choi, the leader of the Gyeonggi chapter, asked the others about the reason for the urgent meeting. He mentioned that his private life was disturbed due to the short notice. Moon-gil Lee, the leader of the Chungcheon chapter, explained that they couldn't say much about it and that there was no choice. Ji-yeok Kim, leader of the Gangwon chapter, stated that if Cheon-soo called for a gathering, they had to comply. Chin Ju-jo, leader of the Jeolla chapter, advised against being negative, mentioning the chance to see Seoul City. Tae-soo inquired if the meeting was about Hanjun Park, thinking he had been keeping a low profile after dealing with settlement bills. Moon-gil agreed, and Dongshin Baek, leader of the Jeongseong chapter, asked who Hanjun was and if he was important. Moon-gil laughed at Dongshin's way of mentioning Hanjun's name, explaining that 2 years ago, Hanjun Park was a major problem for Nexus, controlling a district that resisted falling under Nexus control. Moon-gil shared that Hanjun's presence inspired others to rise against Nexus, leading to battles they lost despite outnumbering him. Nexus was on the brink of breaking up. Dongshin wondered how they could lose, and Moon-gil smirked, saying once Dongshin saw Hanjun fight, he'd understand. Ji-yeok intervened, asking them to stop arguing, acknowledging that Dongshin wasn't entirely wrong. Tae-soo reminded everyone that it happened 2 years ago and Nexus had grown stronger. Chin-ju suggested not underestimating the situation, emphasizing that what seemed insignificant to them might be significant to someone else. Cheon-soo then entered the room, greeted everyone, and apologized for the short notice. He gathered them to discuss Hanjun Park's recent movements, indicating an inevitable war. Tae-soo questioned if it warranted a war, suggesting they might be overreacting to losing a school. Cheon-soo, however, became furious, asking if they thought he was making a fuss. Tae-soo, realizing his mistake, started sweating and trembling out of fear. In-soo-nam, who led the Incheon chapter, said he didn't believe Cheon-soo was overreacting. He assured Cheon-soo that he would handle the situation despite the lack of leverage from settlement money. Cheon-soo questioned his certainty, but In-soo, sporting a scar, claimed to be ready for this moment. Acknowledging their shared history, Cheon-soo decided to give him a chance. The other members agreed, and In-soo eagerly anticipated revenge. Gathering his men at the lighthouse, In-soo expressed excitement about the impending confrontation with Hanjun Park. When asked if he was serious, In-soo confirmed and expressed a strong desire to end Hanjun's life. Meanwhile, Junwoo took Hanjun to a dilapidated house, feeling it unfair that he knew everything about Hanjun while the reverse wasn't true. Inside, Junwoo revealed that the money he had didn't belong to him but to the house's owner. He recounted a story from 2 years ago when he, as a student, had a close friend deeply involved in information technology. This friend created a sophisticated stock trading AI capable of analyzing various financial aspects and preparing recovery plans before making investments. But then Nexus had started putting its troublemakers in charge of their neighborhood. These folks would go after anyone who stood out and break up any other groups. But Junwoo and his friend didn't accept that treatment. They fought back. While they weren't the best fighters, they resisted like determined dogs. They thought that if they showed Nexus how determined they were, Nexus would leave them alone. Unfortunately, they were wrong. Nexus turned out to be even more ruthless. They burned Junwoo's friend along with his house, and Junwoo couldn't do anything to save him. When Junwoo asked them why they did such a cruel thing, they beat him and claimed they were just having a cigarette near that house. They said his friend was just unlucky. At that moment, Junwoo felt helpless. The desire to stand up against Nexus and the hope for a better life seemed to vanish. He wanted to die and erase every trace of his existence from the world. One day, he turned on his computer and saw the AI trader running. He thought about selling everything and donating the money. However, when he saw the profit, he forgot to blink. There was no joy or regret. He just felt a sense of longing because his friend would never see the success of his invention. He was angry that he couldn't share the news with his friend, but that anger gave him a reason to keep going. Junwoo told Hanjun that the money belonged to his friend, and he was willing to use it all to bring down Chin Soo Kim. When Hanjun asked why he was sharing all this, Junwoo said he was gaslighting him, making it impossible for Hanjun to give up on destroying Nexus. On the way back, Junwoo shared his sad story with Hanjun. He praised Seo Hyeon for the idea. She wondered how Junwoo would appear while sharing his life story. Seo Hyeon reminded him about the Inshin gang coming after him. They were not the thinking type, they just charged forward. She warned him to be cautious, as being brainy wouldn't help against them. Junwoo agreed, noting that they wouldn't have pulled their stunt in the middle of the road if they had used their brains. They threw paint on his car, and the situation escalated as they approached the dual carriageway. Seo Hyeon was still on the call when she heard a noise. As the car hit the dual carriageway, Seo Hyeon asked Junwoo about the noise, only to find he had fallen unconscious due to the accident. Insu took the phone and questioned if Seo Hyeon was Junwoo's girlfriend. He instructed her to go to Hanjun Park, where Insun Nam from Incheon awaited him. They were taking Junwoo to the Jade Key Distribution Center in East Incheon, and Hanjun would know what to do. After passing on the information, Insu hung up and they left the scene. Hanjun walked in the street, contemplating how dramatic Junwoo was and acknowledging that he wouldn't give up easily. Suddenly, Seo Hyeon arrived on her bike. She told him to hop on because some hyenas from Incheon had taken Junwoo. When Junwoo woke up, he found himself tied to a chair and taken to a distribution factory. The Incheon gang surrounded him, and Banjung Baek gave him a fierce look. He asked Insu if he should knock Junwoo out again, but Insu said there was no need. Junwoo was just bait for Hanjun, and they were holding him temporarily. Junwoo laughed at them, calling them eccentric for kidnapping the chairperson of a leading company with brute force. He complimented their bold move and questioned their self-awareness as the weakest link of Nexus. Junwoo recalled a weak person begging for forgiveness from Hanjun Park 2 years ago, and he teased Insu about his chances of surviving Hanjun's arrival. Banjung warned Junwoo to keep quiet, but Junwoo continued to taunt him. As Banjung was about to strike, a boy rushed in, informing them that Hanjun was approaching. Insu asked Banjung to save his energy for dealing with Hanjun. Banjung threw Junwoo aside and headed outside. Before leaving, Insu mentioned that the former head of the Incheon chapter had knelt before Hanjun, emphasizing that they were different now. Seo Hyeon and Hanjun entered the area, followed by the Incheon gang. Seo Hyeon, feeling like all the bikers in the city were chasing her, applied the brakes when she reached the Incheon gang in the middle of the road. Terrified, she asked if Banjung was a Yeti. Banjung told her to be quiet and ordered everyone to follow him, explaining that they didn't gang up on people in Incheon. They fought one-on-one. As he led the way, Seo Hyeon kept asking him questions. She marveled at his size, never having seen such a huge person before. Banjung ignored her completely, but she persisted, teasing him with more questions. Frustrated, he finally turned his head and told her to shut her mouth. Despite his warning, she claimed her curiosity and continued to ask. She inquired about their chapter leader resolving things with Park 2 years ago, questioning why everyone was after him now. Banjung, feeling provoked, warned her that he would even beat women and asked if she wanted to be beaten. Hanjun intervened, acknowledging that she wasn't entirely wrong. Unable to control himself, Banjung decided to hit him. Banjung was born an unusually large baby, and as he hit puberty, he reached a staggering 7 non and 536 pounds. Known as Blimp, he earned a reputation as a man-wrecker. However, when Hanjun kicked him during his first flight, Banjung lost his senses. Upon entering the factory, Incheon boys prepared to attack him. Seo Hyeon made a joke, suggesting a one-on-one confrontation. Junwoo asked Hanjun to end it quickly as his legs were asleep. Insu approached him, telling him to shut up and preparing for a one-on-one fight. Removing his jacket, Insu expressed his eagerness for the long-awaited battle. Insu threw a quick punch at Hanjun's face, leaving him cut and shocked. Insu revealed that he had been waiting for this fight for a long time, urging Hanjun to stop talking and start fighting. Despite Hanjun's attempts to attack, Insu's speed made it difficult for him to dodge the punches. Insu declared that today was the day Inshun would get back at Hanjun for the humiliation suffered 2 years ago. As Hanjun attacked, Insu skillfully dodged and countered, taunting Hanjun for being too slow. Hanjun staggered with a bleeding nose as Insu confidently approached, stating that he had much more rage to vent and urging Hanjun to get up, as it had only just begun. After the previous leader of Incheon bowed to Park, Insu didn't take a single day off. He felt embarrassed. In Incheon, they took pride in being the strongest in Korea. It was shameful for them to give in to Hanjun without a fight, so Insu stopped boxing. His path now was that of a fighter, not a boxer. For the next 2 years, he trained hard, taking on 27 schools, 13 gyms, and 4 gangs along the way. He fought countless times to get back at Park, throwing punches and challenging him to do better. What would happen to the humiliation they endured and the anger he harbored for the past 2 years? Hanjun just took the hits, unable to escape them. Seo Aeon couldn't believe Hanjun was getting cornered and feared he might lose. Jungwoo suggested they wait and watch. He mentioned doing some research before hiring Hanjun, discovering that Hanjun had no background in martial arts, except for fitness training. Despite this, Hanjun had been tearing Nexus apart with his natural strength, endurance, intuition, and adaptability. Once he figured out Nam's style, the tables would turn. The problem was that Insu was also aware of this. Hanjun was taking a severe beating. There were wounds that a gloved hand could cause. Then there were injuries from a bare-knuckle hit, especially if it's from a real boxer. A boxer's bare knuckles could even tear human skin, and Insu knew how to use this to his advantage. He was softening up Hanjun, preparing for a critical blow in the pre-planned second round. Insu landed a punch in Hanjun's stomach and tossed him into the wall, cautioning him not to provoke anger and to throw accurate punches. Hanjun attempted to tackle him, but Insu seized his neck and squeezed. Hanjun countered, using his core strength to push off and apply pressure. Insu couldn't believe it. Hanjun was pushing him back, aiming to crash him into the wall. Insu smirked, mentioning that such tactics might work against a simple boxer, but he was a street fighter through and through. He grabbed Hanjun's upper limb, kicked his abdomen, lifted and smacked him down, and even threw him into a steel rack. Insu's men got excited, claiming they were reclaiming their pride. Insu, however, said it was just round 1 and knew it would take more to knock Hanjun down. He anticipated that the tear in Hanjun's eyes and the bleeding would affect his sight, causing a loss of balance and speed. Insu was confident the game would tilt in his favor. As he ran to punch him, Hanjun surprised everyone by dodging the punch. Insu was bewildered, and even Jungwoo and Seohyun were astonished by this sudden change. Hanjun then retaliated, throwing his first hit at Insu's face. Insu was shocked to see that Hanjun had dodged his punch. He wondered if Hanjun was anticipating his moves. Hanjun landed another punch, and Insu found himself losing ground. The next punch hit Insu's head. Despite Insu's speed gained from numerous battles, he felt like he was facing a formidable opponent. Jungwoo mentioned that Hanjun couldn't be overpowered by anything. Seohyun asked why Insu had been taking the hits without retaliating. Jungwoo explained that Hanjun wasn't just standing still. He was assessing his opponent with his body, studying the fluid transitions between infighting and outboxing, as well as his range and speed. Worried, Insu realized that Hanjun now knew where his punches and kicks would land. Hanjun continued to beat him relentlessly. Insu questioned if all his years of training were merely for Hanjun to read him like an open book. Despite Insu's advantage in speed, he managed to give many cuts to Hanjun's body, but Hanjun continued to outmaneuver him. Jungwoo foresaw Insu getting lost in the fight. Hanjun hit Insu's face, causing his mouth to bleed. In that moment, Insu reflected on his brother's words about protecting what he loved, even if it meant swallowing his pride. His brother had once told him that the most miserable man on earth is the one who fails to protect what he loves. As Hanjun relentlessly beat Insu, he recalled his brother's sacrifice to protect him, even if it meant getting a scar on his face. Now facing this formidable opponent, Insu understood what his brother had shielded him from. His crew, witnessing the beating, asked Blimp if they would stand by or intervene. Realizing he couldn't win against Hanjun, Insu felt scared and wanted to run away. Suddenly, his crew rushed to attack Hanjun, led by Blimp, who declared he would take responsibility for the consequences. Insu shouted and ordered them to stop. Kneeling and bowing before Hanjun, Insu accepted his defeat. Insu recalled feeling ashamed when the man he used to call his boss didn't take his pleas seriously. Now he understands the humiliation Mansu went through, the pain of not being understood, and the burden on his knees. It wasn't just Hanjun weighing them down, it was his entire crew. Limp yelled at Insu to get up, questioning if he was admitting to being as cowardly as his brother. Junwoo stepped in, urging them to think. He explained that Insu was acting for their benefit, not just hacking Hanjun for a shallow victory. According to Junwoo, true winners are those who fight to protect and succeed. Right now, that person was Insu. He asked Insu to look up, spat on his hand, and gave him a reassuring punch on the head. Confused, Insu questioned the punch, and Junwoo reminded him of the kidnapping. Junwoo felt better now, and Insu should be thankful he didn't end up in jail. According to Junwoo, Insu's gang owed a lot to Nexus. Junwoo had paid off the heavy sum that their former leader borrowed from Nexus to help each of their struggling families. Everyone was surprised when they heard the news. Insu asked him why he did it, and Junwoo explained that if he didn't, Nexus would continue to harass him. He made it clear that he wasn't just giving away the money, and told them to check their phones for a message from a vocational school. Junwoo had prepaid their tuition fees and advised them to study hard and work diligently to pay it off. Knowing that they had been working tirelessly to repay the debt to Nexus through food deliveries and construction work, Junwoo said he was helping them because he admired their integrity and resilience in the face of hardships. Insu, feeling grateful, promised to pay it off and thanked Junwoo. Junwoo, along with others, left the place. Insu admitted his defeat and apologized to his boys for staining their honor. He promised never to do the same again and declared that from that day forward, Incheon was no longer associated with Nexus. His men pledged their allegiance to an honorable future for Incheon. The following day in his office, Junwoo thanked his team for successfully wrapping up Incheon. Hanjun noticed Seo Hyun acting strangely, and she revealed her happiness about the substantial amount Junwoo gave her for her job the previous day. Junwoo warned her to be careful with her words in the presence of the man they had kidnapped. Seo Hyun, too happy to care, then turned her attention to Hanjun, complimenting him on his strong shoulders and suggesting they go shopping together over the weekend. Over the weekend, those three went shopping. She made him try on different clothes. When she looked at Hanjun, she said being a mountain bandit is a new trend. Hanjun didn't seem happy, so he tried on another look. In the new outfit, he resembled a rock and roll maniac. She commented that he looked like a beat-up rock star, took a picture, and asked him to throw up a peace sign for a better shot. However, he gave her a terrible look, which scared her. She pleaded with him not to harm her. Junwoo intervened, asking her to stop because Hanjun didn't like it. She suggested he try some casual clothes. When Hanjun emerged from the changing room, she couldn't take her eyes off him. Blushing, she declared that from now on, he should only wear those casuals. She picked out more outfits for him. Two men in the store recognized Seo Hyun as an Instagram celebrity and complimented her in person. The blonde man decided to make a move, but the black one warned him that she was an influencer and out of his league. Ignoring the warning, the blonde guy bragged that Seo Hyun's standards weren't high, pointing to the two men she was with. He believed she needed a real man like him and planned to introduce his friend after hitting on her. Approaching her, he expressed friendly feelings and asked if she wanted to hang out. She questioned who he was, and he replied that he just wanted to have some fun. Patting her shoulder, he declared his love for Korea. In response, she slapped him, asking who he thought he was groping. She had heard everything he said and called him names. Angered, the guy attacked her, insisting she should know her place better. Hanjun punched his face. The guy fell on the glass door, and it broke. His friend stepped forward to attack Hanjun. Hanjun blocked his punch and ended up breaking his fingers. Hanjun grabbed him, and the guy asked for forgiveness. Seo Hyun enjoyed the show while eating popcorn. Suddenly, the storekeeper told them they couldn't fight inside the store, or she would call the police. Seo Hyun apologized and said they would stop. The storekeeper insisted they also had to pay for the damage. Seo Hyun and Hanjun looked at Junwoo as if he was their source of money. At the Jeonmi chapter of Nexus, Tasu Choi played cards in a bar and talked on the phone. He was told that Incheon had been taken over, and he complimented Junwoo for paying all their debts. Taesu was playing against a girl who was shivering as she lost the game. Taesu told the person on the call that he was ready to take action, not worrying about Hanjun. After the call, he returned to the game, apologizing to the girl for taking so long. He asked her if she was ready to check the card that could be her last. She opened her last card while her hands were shaking. She started crying as she lost again. Taeju told her that her total debt was now 120 million won. The staff grabbed her and was about to take her to her new workplace. She initially resisted but then agreed to do what he asked earlier. Taeju smirked, reminding her that she had called him her close friend. She replied that she had, but now she would do what she had to do. He gave her Soyeon's picture and hoped she wouldn't regret her choice. Donyeon did heavy leg presses at the hospital's recovery ward to regain strength. He was soaked in sweat. A nurse approached him and asked him to stop overworking because he hadn't fully recovered yet. He agreed to stop after 2 more sets. Junwoo joined them and inquired about his recovery. Donyeon assured him that everything was going well and expressed gratitude for Junwoo covering his bills. Junwoo dismissed the need for repayment and advised Donyeon not to feel pressured to fight Nexus. He could do what he wanted. Donyeon thanked him again and made it clear that he wouldn't stop until he defeated Nexus because it was his choice. Junwoo smiled and expressed eagerness to see him fully recovered. Later, Junwoo shared details of his meeting with Donyeon with Hanjun, pleased to hear about Donyeon's speedy recovery. Junwoo mentioned that since they were now well informed about Donyeon's health, it was time to get back to their business. He informed Hanjun that Inshin was the first to rally. The next fight they had was over who had lent them money. Choi Taesu and his Gyeonggi chapter were involved. Hanjun hadn't met Taesu yet. Taesu was the main financial support for Nexus, earning money through loan sharking. He was the top target for removal. Junwoo later brought Hanjun to meet someone important. This person they met was struggling with mental health. He asked Junwoo to promise to keep him safe before sharing everything. Junwoo assured him and asked him not to worry. The person shared that Taesu was like the devil. He started telling his own story. He used to be praised for his handsome looks, and people suggested he become an Instagram influencer. He liked the idea because it was his dream to be loved and set trends. However, the reality was tough. His account wasn't growing, and he wondered what he was doing wrong. He was on the verge of giving up when he got invited to a party thrown by celebrities with hundreds of followers. It felt like a golden opportunity from heaven. Being with them would surely boost his followers. He took the chance and attended their parties. They praised his looks and asked him to join live streams. With their support, his following shot up, making him feel special. Unfortunately, the glory didn't last long. After some time, those influencers showed their true colors. They used to gamble. He tried to stop them, telling them it wasn't right. That guy told him to get lost as he wasn't important to them anymore. They kicked him out of the gang. Shortly after, he lost all his followers. No matter what he posted or did during live sessions, nothing could regain his followers. He started going crazy. Desperate to be in the gang's good graces and regain his followers, he began gambling. Soon, he became addicted and lost everything. He used all the money from his father and was desperate to earn it back. That's when Taesu entered the story. Taesu loaned him some money, and he accepted it naively. However, he had to work for Taesu for 10 years to pay off that debt. What really frustrates him is that Taesu turns out to be the person who lured him into the gambling world. He knows it's all his fault and shouldn't have fallen into the trap, but he was foolish back then. Junwoo tells him not to blame himself, as those truly at fault are the ones who chased his dreams. Junwoo assures him that they will teach them a lesson soon. The same guy opens the door by kicking it. The staff looked at him surprisingly. He remembered that Junwoo had told him to go there with Hanjun and play a little. However, he had refused. Junwoo had assured him earlier that his involvement would be kept confidential. He had made it clear that he didn't want anything to do with Nexus. Junwoo had suggested that if he wanted to stay uninvolved, this was precisely the way. He promised to eliminate all gambling parlors and Nexus bases in Gyeonggi province, ensuring his safety. A croupier asked him if he had anything to bet. He placed the money bag in front of the croupier and asked him to take half of it. The croupier thought he was foolish but complied. He showed him the way. He had been confused when Junwoo first told him about this plan. He questioned the connection between his gambling and bringing down Nexus. Junwoo explained that they would bankrupt Nexus by winning all their money, claiming he knew a surefire way to win. In regular casinos, dealers don't always win. However, based on past experiences, the games are designed to ensure the dealer's victory every time, essentially tricking others. When Junwoo revealed all these details, he asked how they would win if the dealer cheated. Junwoo responded that they would turn it to their advantage. When the croupier handed him the coin, he took a gamble on all of them. He told the guy he had quite the nerve. However, a shattering sound interrupted him as he pulled cards from his sleeves. Suddenly, Hanjun leaped over and kicked the dealer's face, causing him to fall to the ground, revealing the cards hidden in his sleeves. The guy explained the rules. if someone is caught red-handed, they leave empty-handed, so he claimed all the money as rightfully his. The guards gathered around, questioning the wisdom of creating a scene. They urged both of them to leave the money and go away. Hanjun refused, and they were attacked. However, Hanjun defeated all of them and compelled other joints to play fair as well. He caught them in the act but played the game with honesty, not deceiving anyone. At the Gyeonggi chapter headquarters, a man told Taesu that their 2nd, 4th, and 5th locations had gone bankrupt in a single day. He mentioned that Junwoo was playing a really fast game, but Taesu was just getting in touch with Seo-hyeon at that moment. Wondering if Tansud had forced her to call, Seo-hyeon apologized to her friend. Taesu also apologized if she found it unpleasant but suggested they talk now that they had met. He hinted at the possibility of an opportunity that might please her and asked for information on Junwoo's plans. In return, he offered to pay her 3 times what she got from Junwoo. Seo-hyeon eagerly accepted the deal, expressing excitement that Taesu already had the money for her, relieving her initial fears. Taesu was surprised by her reaction, and she provided her account number, asking him to send the money. She assured him that she was happy with her choice, but warned him to reconsider if he thought of lying, emphasizing the potential consequences of deceit. Taesu's teenage bodyguards, Charlie and Rodriguez, gave her threatening looks, but she dismissed their concern, claiming she was a terrible liar. After receiving the money, she revealed their most latest plan, starting a countdown from 10. Taesu questioned her actions, and she announced that the operation to mop up the Gyeonggi headquarters had been launched. Suddenly, the entrance door broke, and Hanjun entered the room. The guy in the blue tracksuit was with him. He asked if they were ready to play. All the staff attacked him on orders from their boss, but they all got beaten in no time. Taesu wondered why he was there. No plan could work against Hanjun at that moment. Hanjun punched him, and he tumbled down. He ordered Charlie and Rodriguez to get him at all costs. They tore down their clothes to show their muscle mass and tried to intimidate him with their huge build. Standing behind them, Taesu decided to run as fast as he could. He knew they looked solid and massive but lacked strength. Both of them were going to lose to Hanjun. Hanjun grabbed their heads and smashed them on the ground. While running, Taesu tried to think about what to do. He wasn't good at fighting, but he had made it this far by overpowering muscles with money and manipulation. Now he just had to come up with a plan to take Hanjun down. But first, he had to save his life. Seo-hyeon took pictures of Charlie and Rodriguez after Hanjun had beaten them. She told him that Taesu had already run away. Hanjun looked at the door and thought chasing him mindlessly was useless. Junwoo was informed about Taesu's escape. He said he would find him soon and contact Hanjun afterward. He appreciated the rest of the work. Hanjun left the office. Junwoo was offended as Taesu had made his work tricky. He thought about what plan Taesu might be plotting against them. A guy on a computer told Taesu that he made a wise move by disappearing from the scene. Taesu replied that it would take a fool to wrestle with that beast when there was an easier way. He asked if the thing he ordered was ready. That guy replied yes. Taesu had to say the word, and Hanjun was as good as dead. Taesu ordered him to post it, and that guy pressed the button. The job had been posted online to eliminate Hanjun, with a reward of 2 billion won on the table. Many believed that Taesu earned mainly from the gambling parlor he operated, but in reality, their primary income came from an illegal gambling website. Recently, Taesu had staked a 2 billion won bet on Hanjun's life in front of their 87,000 users. Users were intrigued by the bounty, but the enormity of the reward also hinted at its extreme danger. Few were willing to take on such a risky challenge. To encourage participation, Taesu introduced an incentive system. This way, even those who doubted their ability to eliminate Hanjun could be motivated by the prospect of making substantial money in a single stroke. Countless individuals became potential threats, and Hanjun wouldn't suspect anyone until they made a move. The hunt had officially started. As Hanjun walked down the street, a girl approached him, mistaking him for someone named Jaeonmin. After realizing her error, she apologized and bowed before Hanjun resumed his walk. Unbeknownst to him, a girl named Sujin, carrying a knife in her bag, was closing in on him from behind. She sprinted toward him, but Hanjun, attuned to the sound of her footsteps, reacted in time to block her attack by grabbing her arm. Noticing her clumsy movements, he deduced that she wasn't affiliated with Nexus. The girl explained that she needed money, emphasizing her desperate situation. While he was engrossed in listening to her, a guy in a helmet came up and attacked him from behind with a bat. Hanjun managed to block the attack and questioned the girl about why she had assaulted him. Simultaneously, he broke the assailant's helmet with his bat, causing the guy's facial bones to break, and he crumpled to the ground. Despite the intense look he gave her, he asked the girl to explain everything. She showed him an ad from the gambling site she used and apologized for her attempt. Connecting the pieces of the puzzle, Hanjun realized that Taesu was behind it. Suddenly, some people from across the street entered the scene, armed with various weapons to attack him. To them, he seemed like a punching bag that spits out money. Hanjun observed them and thought they were just ordinary people. Meanwhile, the tech guy informed Taesu that they were receiving numerous reports of attempts, and people were going crazy for the task. He expressed concern that the incentive system might not be enough, underestimating the number of people fixated on money. He got worried about going bankrupt by paying the incentive. Taesu smirked and said it was the natural outcome. He asked the tech guy if he knew why Taesu chose to seize the gambling market. The guy said he had no idea. He explained that gambling makes people submissive. For instance, if he offered 2 billion won to a billionaire to murder someone, the billionaire would never take it. However, those who lost everything to gambling would accept it without hesitation. The promise of 2 billion won could bring them a luxurious life, so they wouldn't think twice about committing such an act. Morality wasn't a concern for them, making them ideal for the job. Hanjun started beating the strikers. He was shocked to see a kid among those gamblers. He managed to escape his attack, and Hanjun chose not to harm him. A guy drove his car into a narrow street to block the exit. He came out from the car's sunroof holding a knife. Hanjun, in response, grabbed a metal waste bin and used it to push back the guy back into the car. Meanwhile, he received a call from Junwoo, who checked on Hanjun's well-being and mentioned that a rescue team was on the way. However, Hanjun declined the assistance, requesting the location of Taesu instead. Junwoo, alarmed by the situation, ordered his security chief to send a team immediately. Angry at Taesu's actions, Junwoo was determined to address the issue. Hanjun, not trusting the rescue team, decided to escape on his own. He climbed a wall, jumped over it, and ran away. A bystander informed the team that Hanjun was in trouble. Upon entering a certain place, the trap was sprung. Someone shut the entrance, and Hanjun found himself surrounded by a team of street fighters. Realizing that he had been lured there by people outside, Hanjun understood that they were likely affiliated with Nexus. Despite the danger, he confidently adjusted his sleeves, expressing that for the first time, he was pleased to find himself in a Nexus den. Hanjun defeated half of them quickly. The rest got scared watching him and stepped back. Junwoo called him, saying he found Taesu and sent the location to Hanjun's phone. Hanjun checked it and promised to join after finishing things there. Taesu, observing through a security camera, smirked, confident about what awaited Hanjun. A tech guy, amused by the situation, declared that today would be the end of Hanjun's story. He even suggested taking down Junwoo, earning Taesu's approval and a promotion. The tech guy went on to post about Junwoo on a gambling site, displaying his picture on screens everywhere. Taesu appreciated the tech guy's readiness. However, things took an unexpected turn when Junwoo retaliated. He revealed that his security team had hacked their system, leaving the tech guy in shock as he lost control of his server and screens froze. Junwoo, enjoying the moment, laughed at them, claiming they fell into his trap. Taesu urgently asked the tech guy to shut it down, but he couldn't regain control. Junwoo, seizing the opportunity, placed a bet on Taesu's head. The message was sent to all the gamblers, and they were shocked to discover that their site had been hacked, prompting them to flee. Now those gamblers are pursuing Taesu. Taesu and the tech guy make a run for it, trying to escape the chasing men. Taesu, realizing the danger to his life, decides to prioritize his safety over the money he lost. While he could always create a new gambling website and find new debt slaves, his immediate concern was getting away. Suddenly, the tech guy is thrown off, and Hanjun appears on the stairs, questioning why Taesu is in such a hurry. Taesu, feeling the tension, asks Hanjun to stay back and warns of the consequences if he approaches. He boasts about his celebrity status and the power of a few phone calls to erase Hanjun from the scene. Ignoring the warning, Hanjun kicks Taesu in the face, causing him to fall. Seizing the opportunity, Hanjun begins to beat him severely. Despite Taesu's warnings about ruining his life, Hanjun catches him by the hair and smashes his head onto the ground. The situation looks grim for Taesu. At that time, he was on the path to becoming a social outcast. He claimed that Hanjun could feel better by throwing a few punches, but it would impact his dad's job. Hanjun kicked him, causing Taesu to cry from the pain. He couldn't understand why threats didn't affect Hanjun. Trying another approach, he offered Hanjun money, promising to pay more than Junwoo was paying him. However, Hanjun responded with a kick to the other side of his face. Now Taesu realized that his money wouldn't work in this situation either. Hanjun continued to beat him harshly, and in desperation, Taesu pleaded for a moment to talk. He tried to offer more cash to Hanjun, urging him to consider the profit and loss. Taesu begged Hanjun not to hurt him. Although Hanjun expressed the desire to continue beating him, he decided to leave and handed Taesu over to a group of gambler slaves who would do it for 2 billion. Taesu was shocked to see them and asked if they had no other way to repay him. They explained that they didn't need to pay back the money a casino had lent them. Instead, they only had to repay him with violence. All that mattered to them was 2 billion. They all got angry and attacked him. The job got done. Junwoo's lawyer told him that Taesu had to spend 14 weeks in the ward. They'd take legal action against him after that. All the social media accounts he used for illegal stuff got shut down. Junwoo praised his lawyer for doing a great job. He was sure this would make Chien-soo really mad. Chien-soo went to see Taesu at the hospital. He brought a basket of apples. Taesu was surprised to see him. He thanked Chien-soo for checking on him and said he was much better. Chien-soo smiled, patted his arm, and asked about the money. Taesu shuddered and apologized. Chien-soo grabbed his arm, and Taesu screamed in pain. Chien-soo asked why he was apologizing. He knew Taesu wouldn't give up. He was going to get his money back. Meanwhile, Dong-yeon left the hospital after fully recovering. He thanked the nurse because her care and help had played a significant role in his recovery. She smiled and mentioned that helping people was part of her job. She then asked him to promise that he wouldn't get into any more fights. Dong-yeon smiled and replied that he would consider it. While walking down the road, he witnessed a troubling scene. Some guys were beating up a man in the street. The man pleaded for mercy, promising to return their money the next day. The attackers, however, reminded him that he had made the same promise the day before. One of them held the man's head and another, carrying a hammer, threatened to knock out 2 of his front teeth that day. Dong-yeon noticed a nexus ring on one of the attackers' hands. They were about to carry out their threat, warning the man to stay steady unless he wanted holes in the roof of his mouth. Suddenly, everyone turned their attention toward Dong-yeon, who was stretching on the road. One person told him he wasn't in the gym and suggested he leave if he didn't want trouble. In response, Dong-yeon kicked the speaker in the face. The other 2 onlookers were puzzled by the unexpected turn of events. Dong-yeon assessed his mobility at 80%. The 2 others charged at him, and Dong-yeon swiftly kicked one in the nose, causing it to bleed. Testing his speed, he declared it to be at 70%. He finished off the 3rd person by crushing his head with a powerful kick, rating his strength at 50%. Realizing he had a long way to go for a complete recovery, Dong-yeon decided to leave the scene. After his departure, one of the Nexus guys recognized him, confirming the rumors he had heard. Dong-yeon and Hanjun were making a comeback. In the past, they enjoyed nationwide fame for their legendary battles against Nexus. With Nexus losing control over Incheon and Jeongi, Dong-yeon and Hanjun Park were now considered rebooted legends. They began to garner a significant following once again, with their videos primarily being consumed for entertainment. Some people felt fear and anger towards them, while others found hope in their return. Meanwhile, Chien-soo went somewhere, ignoring the infighting nearby, and kept walking towards the roof. On the rooftop, Moon-young-baek was lying under an umbrella. He asked Chien-soo why he was there and if Hanjun had really returned. Chien-soo smiled and confirmed the news. Moon-young remarked that if Chien-soo was there, he must be losing to Hanjun. Chien-soo replied that only an equal opponent could defeat him. Moon-young brought up an event from 2 years ago, reminding Chien-soo how he had used him like a disposable tool to destroy Hanjun. Chien-soo explained that he had no other choice back then, but now he was seeking help. He promised Moon-young a handsome reward this time and would give him whatever he wanted. Moon-young laughed and asked if he was telling the truth, even if it meant giving up Nexus throne, which Chien-soo currently occupied. Chien-soo smirked and challenged Moon-young's ability to handle the throne. Moon-young, checking if Chien-soo's gaming activities had affected him, walked towards him slowly, jokingly stating he was just kidding. He understood that Chien-soo wasn't there to ask but to give an order. Moon-young agreed to handle the matter masterfully like last time, expecting some reward money for a drink. He then left the rooftop, promising not to disappoint Chien-soo. At night he sat in his room, pondering whether Chien-soo had visited him because he believed in him against Hanjun. He was certain that this wasn't the case, as he would never have faith in him. The plan in his mind seemed to be getting rid of both him and Hanjun at the same time. He wondered about the best course of action. Jaeyoung, who was busy torturing a man, expressed regret about the situation. Moon-young looked at him and asked if he was still wasting time on this man. He instructed him to murder the guy if he didn't cough up the money. Jaeyoung pierced the man's neck with a screwdriver, explaining that the guy had agreed to pay, but he had a bad feeling about it. As he pulled out the screwdriver, blood started to flow from the man's neck. It didn't take much convincing to make him agree to pay, and Moon-young didn't like his face either. While searching for something with his tools, Jaeyoung expressed an intense desire to find out what Chien-soo had told Moon-young. He took hold of a butcher knife and told Jaeyoung to either join him in hurting that guy or stop him. Jaeyoung insisted on handling it himself and questioned Moon-young about Chien-soo's words and whether there was a request to murder Hanjun. He pondered whether to gather all the boys for this. Moon-young, with a smirk, admitted that he had worried needlessly. Hanjun wasn't a formidable challenge, and this situation was an opportunity to reunite with his old friends. He informed his boys that a straightforward attack wouldn't work against Hanjun and Donyeon. Moon-young approached Jaeyoung, took a screwdriver from him, and declared he would handle it his way. He proceeded to stab the hanged person, explaining that he would start slowly with the extremities. Blood began to drip from the person's body, and Moon-young casually tossed the screwdriver aside as he walked away. He draped his jacket over his shoulder, revealing his plan to surprise Chien-soo by first eliminating Hanjun and then going after Chien-soo. Meanwhile, Seo Hyun hosted a party on Instagram. She had set it up to welcome Donyeon to the team. Jungwoo asked him what kind of nonsense she was up to in his office. She questioned if he couldn't see, and he ordered her to stop and sit down. They had a new target. She protested on the mic that they wouldn't work on Donyeon's recovery celebration day. She demanded a guarantee for her pursuit of recreation. He reminded her that they had agreed revenge was their main recreation. She persisted, calling Jungwoo an exploitative employer. He threatened to fire her on the spot. She claimed she was just kidding. Suddenly, he received a call and was shocked to hear that Incheon was attacked. Fatty was admitted to the hospital with Insu standing beside him. Jungwoo arrived and asked what happened. Insu replied that he shouldn't have come all this way. Jungwoo walked toward the door, stating he could handle it himself, and left the room. The three observed him leaving but didn't stop him. Fatty removed his oxygen mask and asked Hanjun for help. Jungwoo asked if he had been pretending to sleep all this time. Fatty replied that he didn't want to see Insu fight anymore, so he pretended to sleep to keep information from him. If he had told him who did this to him, Insu would have gone after that person. Jungwoo said he knew it must have been Nexus, but who attacked him exactly? Before Fatty said anything, Donyeon said it was Moon-young behind this attack. He knew that bruise all too well. Moon-young was the same guy who smashed his knee 2 years ago. Chien-soo had a meeting with the CEO of a gaming company. He thanked him for his cooperation in preparation and said now they could put their plan into operation. He told the CEO that in the following month, high schoolers from around the country would play games his company produced until the 2 top spots of the concurrent user statistics were filled with his games, and until 15,000 won per share became 80,000 won per share. The CEO asked if it was possible. Chien-soo smiled and said it was possible with trust. The CEO replied that he would put all his trust in him. As he rode down the elevator, a guy wearing a mask and hoodie joined him. Sharing his thoughts, he said the games were just okay in his opinion. However, he assured that it wouldn't be a problem because he had issued a nationwide order. Chien-soo told Lion Kim that he trusted him with it, considering it was his specialty. Lion responded, saying they could discuss money on another day. For now, he wanted to talk about Hanjun. Lion had heard that Hanjun was back in the game, and Chien-soo was countering him with Moon-young. Expressing concern, Lion warned Chien-soo that Moon-young would bring various messy complications. He questioned if Chien-soo was sure about that choice. Chien-soo replied that it was a wide-open field. He likened it to a habitat with a hyena among its inhabitants, preying on decaying carcasses. Despite the hyena's actions, it wouldn't disrupt the order of the wild. Chien-soo suggested that Lion take a seat and watch the two, Hanjun and Moon-young, fight. Lion agreed, acknowledging that a lion didn't need to get involved with the hyena. At a gym, Donyeon did squats, and Seo Hyun was also working out and sharing videos on Instagram. She suggested making a workout video together someday. Donyeon, breathing heavily and covered in sweat, put down the weights. Surprised to see Seo Hyun, he asked why she was there. She got straight to the point, saying she found out that Moon-young used to live in the United States and needed Donyeon's help to learn more about him. As Donyeon returned to work out, he explained that Moon-young was a genius. Dongyan considered only 3 people as geniuses in fighting: Hanjun, Chien-su, and Munyeong. 2 years ago, Dongyan and Hanjun became the heads of their district in high school, and no one dared to challenge them, not even Nexus. However, a few months later, a kid from the US transferred to Gangman High School and amazed everyone on his first day, even the third-year students. At that time, it seemed impossible to Dongyan. He had moved to a school in their district. Many changes happened afterward. He began considering nearby schools as his rivals. He ranked them, trying to instigate conflicts among them. Schools that fell in rank became targets of his intense bullying. No one knew why he behaved this way. Students at Dongyan's school observed his pattern and feared that their school might be next. However, they hoped that their unity would protect them. One day, a friend of his entered the classroom looking distressed. He warned that Munyeong was serious, then collapsed with a message on the back of his shirt. Dongyan received a call to meet Munyeong the next day at 8 p.m. in the park. Angry and frustrated, he went there the following evening. He waited for about an hour. A few minutes later, another student staggered over and fell nearby. He had been sending messages that way. The original plan got cancelled. He was playing dirty, disappearing whenever they seemed close to catching him. Then, a student from his school would show up badly beaten. He was breaking Dongyan down bit by bit. 8 students had gone through that. People at Dongyan's school started to believe he was avoiding this person. When Dongyan reached his limits, Munyeong finally appeared. That marked the beginning of Dongyan's ill-fated relationship with Munyeong. Dongyan asked if Munyeong was the leader of the school because he seemed like a follower. This made Munyeong angry. Dongyan tried to kick him, but Munyeong dodged it. Dongyan questioned why Munyeong did all those crazy things to his classmates. If Munyeong wanted a fight, he should have just asked for it directly. Dongyan threw multiple hits, but Munyeong skillfully dodged them all. Munyeong explained that he did everything to provoke Dongyan, and Dongyan agreed to the fight. Munyeong landed a punch on Dongyan's ribs, cracking them. Dongyan staggered back but managed to stabilize himself. Dongyan acknowledged that if making him angry was Munyeong's plan, then he succeeded. Dongyan attempted another kick, but Munyeong landed a punch first. Dongyan realized that Munyeong wasn't just an average fighter. He was a formidable one, like a snake injecting venom into his opponent's wounds. Munyeong provoked anger in Dongyan before the fight, throwing him off emotionally. The match seemed to be in Munyeong's favor, with Dongyan on the losing end. To turn things around, Dongyan had to regain control over his emotions and use his intelligence. He managed to wrap his legs around Munyeong, halting his attacks momentarily. However, Munyeong broke free, and despite Dongyan landing a head strike that broke Munyeong's nose, he threw Dongyan away, inflicting some damage. Dongyan, though hurt, got back up, acknowledging that he had underestimated Munyeong. Surprisingly, he thanked Munyeong for the wake-up call. Munyeong, not satisfied, expressed a desire to push Dongyan further. This led to a fierce and bloody fight between them, ultimately resulting in a double knockout. However, the fight ended abruptly when someone called the police, forcing them all to flee the scene. Munyeong came to realize that he had underestimated Dongyan, who was no ordinary fighter. Before he left, he mentioned they would continue the fight at another time. However, he made it clear that the next round would be even more intense. For Dongyan, that tie felt worse than a defeat. In his conversation with Hanjun, he offered to handle Munyeong for him. Hanjun's response indicated that Munyeong was determined to dominate the entire area, and eventually, Hanjun would clash with him. Dongyan urged Hanjun to steer clear of Munyeong when that happened, warning that it could be self-destructive. Jaeyoung shared that Munyeong attacked Dongyan first because he was weaker than Hanjun. However, if someone supposedly weaker was that formidable, defeating Hanjun seemed impossible. Munyeong boldly stated that if he couldn't do it alone, he would bring 100 boys to attack. Even if Hanjun and Dongyan were like beasts, facing 100 opponents at once was an absurd challenge for the two. In Busan City, Chien-su had lunch with Mun-gil Lee, who shared an amusing story he heard. There was talk about a guy named Munyeong engaged in a fight with Hanjun. According to Mun-gil, their men's morale was low because of Hanjun, leaving only Jeolla and Busan as the remaining areas to conquer in the country. Chien-su didn't respond to him and just kept smiling. Mun-gil had heard that Munyeong was a tough match for Dongyan. He suggested hiring Munyeong to deal with both Hanjun and Dongyan. Chien-su stood up and asked Mun-gil to stop eating. Dealing with Hanjun could wait. Right now, they had to handle some other people. A gang was outside the restaurant, and their leader asked Chien-su to come out. Chaos ensued as the gang started throwing chairs and tables, breaking the restaurant windows. Mun-gil was annoyed at the interruption during lunch and decided to finish the job first. Both gangs started fighting. Chien-su looked at his opponent and smiled. The guy moved to attack him, but Chien-su punched him first and threw him aside. At that moment, Chien-su thought Moon-yeon might prove useful someday. Moon-yeon had informed his men that they were going to fight Hanjun that day. His men were unsure if they could beat him. Even Nexus couldn't touch him. Moon-yeon had informed them that they could pursue Hanjun. He understood that they were all afraid of Hanjun, which angered him. He questioned whether they were just a bunch of useless guys who were tired of keeping a low profile. It wasn't right for 100 guys to live in fear because of one person. Regardless of Hanjun's skills, he was still a human who could be defeated. They were not stronger than the combined force of 100 men in Hanjun. Moon-yeon believed that their actions would lift their spirits and elevate them above Nexus. His speech motivated the men. Suddenly, Hanjun entered the room, dragging another man with him. Hanjun challenged them, asking if they thought they could defeat him by gathering 100 men. He identified Moon-yeon and thanked him for saving his time. Moon-yeon confirmed his identity, and Hanjun immediately told him to stop talking and start fighting. Hanjun assured Moon-yeon that he would demonstrate how fighting was done. Moon-yeon, preparing for the fight, put on a rubber glove, expressing his preference for not playing fair. Suddenly, 2 of Moon-yeon's men hurled pieces of broken glass at him, causing him to start bleeding. Moon-yeon attempted to punch him, but Hanjun skillfully dodged the attack. However, the glass fragments cut Hanjun's skin, resulting in more bleeding. Moon-yeon declared that this was just the beginning, and that he had more in store for Hanjun. Even though other men joined the attack, they proved to be weak, and Hanjun managed to beat them despite his injuries. Yet they persisted in assaulting him, and Hanjun realized they were being used to drain his stamina and harm his hand. Realizing the disadvantageous situation, Hanjun decided to stop resisting and allowed himself to be beaten for a bit. In a moment of inspiration, he took off his shirt and used it to wrap around his hand, protecting it from further damage. Despite the odds stacked against him, this challenging situation transformed him into a formidable force, earning him a legendary reputation. Moon-yeon found it increasingly difficult to land a hit on Hanjun. Despite Moon-yeon's previous experiences facing tough opponents in America, including the supposed strongest, he couldn't comprehend Hanjun's extraordinary strength and resilience. Hanjun had beaten him to death. He pressed the man's head under his shoe and warned that if he ever dared to fight back, he would spend his entire life looking at the ground. After the brutal beating by Hanjun, Moon-yeon sat under the bridge, contemplating the craziness of one man overpowering 100. He accepted Hanjun as an insurmountable obstacle. Jae-yong approached Moon-yeon, noticing his sadness, and reminded him that he was someone who would do anything to win. Moon-yeon stood up, apologized for his momentary hopelessness, and disappeared for a while. However, the aftermath of the fight lingered. Hanjun's decisive victory made him famous as the strongest in Korea, fueling rumors about his ability to face Nexus. Chien-su, feeling threatened by the rumors, grew impatient and decided to take over Hanjun's territory. They sent men to confront him, but none could match his strength. Hanjun started dismantling Nexus's influence, first in Incheon, then defeating Gyeonggi and Gangwon. Even fighters considered formidable in Korea fell before him, and people began to admire him, pushing Nexus to the brink of collapse. Moon-yeon had suggested ending Hanjun's story by taking his life. Chien-su disagreed, believing it wouldn't be effective after their national conquest. He didn't want news to be remembered as bullies. Instead, Chien-su proposed instilling basic fear and defeating Hanjun in combat. He planned to handle it himself. Lion arrived, advising Chien-su to calm down. Threatening to put everything about Nexus at stake, Lion challenged Chien-su to a fight. Chien-su questioned Lion's faith in him. Lion supported Chien-su, stating that if not him, then who else? Lion recognized Chien-su's dwindling patience, but suggested a quieter resolution, even if it meant playing dirty. Despite this, Chien-su remained against taking a life. Lion proposed using someone outside their group and already had a candidate in mind, the perfect person to conclude the situation. Soon after, we see Moon-yeon intensively trained to confront Hanjun. Suddenly, Chien-su appeared to ask him to join them. Chien-su started questioning whether he believed his training would be enough to defeat Hanjun. Moon-yeon recognized Chien-su and admitted to failing to take down Hanjun. Chien-su acknowledged having his reasons and then offered Moon-yeon an easier and faster solution, joining Nexus. Moon-yeon, aware of Nexus's trouble with Hanjun, expressed his own failure in dealing with him, suggesting Hanjun was unbeatable. Chian-soo cryptically mentioned having his reasons. Additionally, he didn't come just to fight. He inquired about joining the business. Moon-young suggested assessing Chian-soo's abilities. He rushed to test him, examining if Chian-soo was suitable as an ally. Chian-soo successfully defended against the attack. He questioned Moon-young about seeking revenge on Hanjun. With a ready plan and funds, he assured Moon-young that they could defeat Hanjun. Relaxing his fist, he mentioned that Moon-young was the perfect fit for the plan. If Moon-young agreed, things would become simpler. He proposed discussing the details, and Moon-young prepared to listen. Meanwhile, Dong-yan strolled through the streets on a rainy evening. Suddenly, he noticed gangsters surrounding him. He threw his umbrella and engaged in a fight with them all alone. At that moment, he believed Nexus still followed fair fights. He never anticipated that Nexus would betray him by using weapons. He fell into their trap, and they captured a picture of him injured, sending it to Hanjun. They summoned him to their location. Hanjun arrived, finding Dong-yan hanging in chains. This marked the beginning of the war from 2 years ago and the ultimate confrontation. Hanjun, in a fit of rage, reminded Dong-yan that he had instructed Moon-young to show respect in his presence. Dong-yan, however, denied ever having such an instruction in his life. In response, Hanjun struck Dong-yan's leg, breaking it. Silenced by a taped mouth, Dong-yan couldn't even scream, intensifying Hanjun's anger. Dong-yan, overwhelmed by pain, lost consciousness. Hanjun, consumed by fury, rushed towards Dong-yan, threatening to gouge out his eyes. In an unexpected turn, Hanjun found himself ensnared in chains as well. It was a ploy to distract him from the hidden chains. Despite Hanjun's attempts to free himself, he couldn't escape. They began beating him with sticks, causing injuries. Determined, Hanjun seized the chains in his hands and pulled the assailants towards him. Moon-young warned him that he would face death. All of a sudden, Moon-young's men connected the chains to a hook. Hanjun found himself captured and tried to escape. Moon-young began hitting Dong-yan with a metal bat. Hanjun was visibly angry. Moon-young then commanded his men to attack Hanjun, but Hanjun fought back relentlessly. He attempted to pull the chains apart, and Joyeon noticed his efforts to break them with his bare hands. In the end, Hanjun succeeded in breaking the chains. Others started spreading gasoline everywhere. Hanjun tried to break the remaining chain, but Moon-young suddenly appeared and hit him with a crowbar. Hanjun felt the impact and fell to the ground. Seeing Hanjun kneeling, Moon-young proudly declared himself the winner. His men announced that the fire was spreading. Moon-young then reminded Hanjun of his words, warning him that he would be the one crawling for the rest of his life this time. Everyone who was panicking started pulling Moon-young back to escape the fire. Moon-young insisted that Hanjun admit he was already the strongest. He insulted Hanjun and abandoned him in the burning warehouse. Dong-yan felt responsible for Hanjun facing someone like Moon-young and could only cry as Hanjun apologized for being late. The warehouse kept burning, but Hanjun and Dong-yan managed to escape. After the incident, they were interrogated and realized they were framed. Hanjun was accused of assault and arson. Witnesses gave statements against them, and the police were not on their side. The building belonged to Chian-soo's family, and they demanded a large settlement, causing trouble for Hanjun and Dong-yan's family. When things escalated, Chian-soo shamelessly asked for a public apology from Hanjun and Dong-yan. Shortly after, Hanjun overheard his father borrowing money from someone over the phone. His father's friend apologized, explaining that they were also going through tough times. The friend pointed fingers at Hanjun, blaming him for everything, but Hanjun's father was okay with it, seeing it as an opportunity to act like a father. The call ended, and Hanjun noticed the nearby towel he had been using. Feeling overwhelmed, he went outside for some fresh air. Frustrated, he began punching a wall, realizing he wasn't fearless when it came to money and power. It didn't take Hanjun long to encounter Chian-soo and Nexus. Unfortunately, he ended up getting beaten up, coming face to face with a power he couldn't overcome. As Hanjun was helplessly being attacked, Dong-yan was struggling with a broken knee. Chian-soo, looking down on Hanjun, reminded him of the harsh reality. He advised Hanjun not to dream of reaching the top and suggested that he should live quietly, reflecting on his mistakes. Seeing Hanjun silent and bleeding, Chian-soo left him to the other Nexus members to serve as a punching bag. Dong-yan had shared everything that happened 2 years ago with Seo-yeon. When Hanjun invited Dong-yan recently, he declined, thinking he might just be a hindrance. Seo-yeon reassured Dong-yan, appreciating what he did. She told him not to worry since they already had each other and mentioned they had faced similar challenges before. Dongyeon pledged that they would emerge victorious this time. Meanwhile, in his office, Junwoo noted that Inshin was treated like a servant, and Jeonggi was considered a lucrative resource. He speculated that Chieonsu wouldn't deploy their main forces and questioned if sending Munyang alone would be sufficient. Junwoo realized that Nexus was attempting to buy time. As night fell, Hanjun roamed the streets. Suddenly, he received a message, expressing that it had been a while. A car unexpectedly tried to run him over, but he agilely evaded it. Another car emerged, and Hanjun swiftly dodged it as well. The driver of the second car then threw something at Hanjun, a photo of Dongyeon and Seo Hyeon in the gym that morning. Hanjun recognized Munyang's handiwork once again. Meanwhile, Moon-gil used to wonder if Munyang was up to the task. Chieonsu advised him to support the cause by involving students from local schools. Moon-gil disagreed, saying he wouldn't let Chieonsu use his kids. He insisted on dealing with Hanjun personally. Chieonsu, however, had another plan in mind, cautioning that it wasn't the right time. He asked Moon-gil to take care of Munyang in the meantime. After some hesitation, Moon-gil eventually agreed, and Chieonsu thanked him for understanding. The following day, during Dongyeon's shower, someone entered the locker room and opened his locker. They hacked into Dongyeon's phone to track him. Exiting the gym, Dongyeon narrowly avoided a surprise attack from a motorist. He then evaded an AC unit falling from above. Attempting to counterattack the motorist, Dongyeon missed. The motorist threw something at him, a photo of Hanjun. Dongyeon realized it was Munyang's doing. Meanwhile, Munyang and his friends were heading towards a school. The gates opened, and Moon-gil led his friends outside. The two groups stood facing each other, and Moon-gil introduced himself. However, Munyang ignored his handshake, saying he didn't expect much from him. Despite that, Munyang mentioned that things would be different now that they were there. His words made Moon-gil angry. Munyang said that Hanjun would arrive soon and insisted that his crew was just for show. On the other side, Dongyeon tried calling Hanjun, but nobody answered. Hanjun was still staring at a photo he received the night before. Suddenly, he got a text message with a picture of Dongyeon tied up, a location, and a threat to cripple him for life. Furious, Hanjun rushed to their location. Meanwhile, Dongyeon found himself in a different location, realizing that Munyang had deceived him. He thought the situation was unfolding just like it did 2 years ago. Munyang chuckled, pleased that he had sent Dongyeon far away. Thinking things were going smoothly, he questioned why Chieonsu had sent Moon-gil as support. Moon-gil, already irritated, caught Munyang's attention when Jaeon pointed out something at the gate. Munyang was delighted to see his target again and called out to Hanjun, asserting that Dongyeon was on the brink of defeat. Hanjun, filled with rage, glared at Munyang and found himself surrounded by opponents. One of them attempted to introduce himself, but Hanjun swiftly smacked his face. Hanjun then commanded the others to step aside, creating a path in the middle and sending his adversaries flying. Munyang was relieved that Hanjun was a formidable opponent, otherwise Nexus would appear foolish and inept. Moon-gil mentioned that he had only placed the freshmen at the front, acknowledging that they couldn't match up to a monster like Hanjun. However, he believed the experience would be beneficial for them, reassuring Munyang not to worry. Hanjun entered the building and glanced around, spotting two athletes who were Nexus elites with codes instead of names. He asked them to step aside and then launched an attack. The guy with long hair easily dodged and, seizing Hanjun, flipped him onto the floor, realizing that Hanjun was not very strong. He sent Hanjun flying towards a classroom, stating that the rumors about Hanjun's abilities were exaggerated and emphasizing that the current Nexus was on a higher level. However, as he was speaking, Hanjun attempted to attack them again. This time, the guy with the buzz cut intercepted him and executed an armbar move. Simultaneously, the long-haired guy also strangled Hanjun, combining their efforts in the attack. These two were top fighters of Nexus and knew they wouldn't lose against someone like Hanjun who lacked the proper skills. The guy with long hair told Hanjun to go to sleep, but Hanjun gritted his teeth and stomped his foot. He pushed himself toward the wall, but the long-haired guy said Hanjun wouldn't break free easily. The two athletes used different choke moves on Hanjun, nicknamed moves for murdering a lion. The buzzcut guy said it was impossible to escape an armbar. Hanjun stomped his foot again, and the long-haired guy said it was useless. However, Hanjun surprised them by charging forward and knocking the long-haired guy's head against the wall. Hanjun used this chance to smash the long-haired guy's back again. The buzzcut guy reminded the long-haired guy to choke properly. The long-haired guy said not to worry as he could see Hanjun's pupils starting to relax. However, Hanjun continued smashing their faces on the wall. The two athletes tightened their chokes with the intent to murder. Hanjun smashed their heads again, and this time, the long-haired guy gave up. The buzzcut guy was surprised, and Hanjun grabbed hold of his uniform. Hanjun raised him up and smashed him to the floor. The buzzcut guy suddenly recalled Moon-gil telling them they wouldn't win. However, they were confident because of their training. Moon-gil understood their confidence but knew they would learn soon. He claimed Hanjun was a monster. The long-haired guy wondered why they were brought out to fight Hanjun. Moon-gil said he needed them. He knew everyone would be beaten by Hanjun alone, not because they were weak, but because Hanjun was too strong. He reminded them of their special skills and urged them to use them to slowly wear down Hanjun's stamina. After that, their faster fighter would deal with Hanjun. Another Nexus elite member confronted Hanjun on the second floor. Hanjun was visibly tired. Xiaoyan drove through the streets with Dongyan, saying they had to meet someone first. They stopped somewhere, and Dongyan couldn't believe what he saw. Some men near a tunnel. A familiar man came out, saying they'd already taken care of the hackers, and told Xiaoyan to go. She smirked and started her bike's engine. The others followed them in a rally. Dongyan could only hope that Hanjun would last. As for Hanjun, he started attacking the Nexus member in front of him, but this time his opponent was quick and agile. The elite said Hanjun would never beat him. Hanjun remembered Moon-gil's warning that Dongyan would be troublesome later and wanted him to deal quickly with Hanjun. Moon-gil advised the elite to go with Hanjun's flow and never let the restless Hanjun get close to him to buy time. The elite was offended, as he felt he would be fighting like a rat. Moon-gil knew the elite was trustworthy and confident about winning. But he advised not even to try winning against Hanjun, leaving his words as a strict order. The elite had remembered Moon-gil's words, but Hanjun in front of him couldn't even dodge his punches. The elite insisted that most martial artists had a telltale sign before attacking, but he was different. He moved his fist before his waist and legs. Hanjun, accustomed to anticipating such pre-movements, didn't see the fist coming toward his face. To him, it felt like a fast bullet. Despite recalling Moon-gil's advice, the elite found an opening to attack but hesitated. Still, he pressed on, wondering why there was so much hype around Hanjun. Hanjun tried to counter, and the elite boasted that he was more than capable of defeating Hanjun. Suddenly, Hanjun realized he was backed against a wall and wondered if it was part of Hanjun's strategy. Dodging Hanjun's punch, the elite stopped his hands in front of Hanjun's abdomen and delivered a 1-inch punch, sending Hanjun flying. Undeterred, Hanjun retaliated. The elite insulted him and unleashed another 1-inch punch, thinking Hanjun might be feeling his insides twist. Hanjun smirked and got serious, charging forward once more. The elite, growing frustrated, prepared a lethal attack. Hanjun endured multiple punches, his body showing visible dents. Then, surprisingly, Hanjun grabbed the elite's arm, stopping his fist. The elite was taken aback. Hanjun, annoyed by the elite's excessive talking, swiftly demolished his face with a single punch. Someone had announced that the second floor had fallen, catching Moon-gil off guard. He couldn't believe how quickly it happened. Despite his warnings, his kids didn't seem to listen. Moon-gil was worried about Hanjun, knowing he would face challenges on the upcoming floors due to his exhaustion. Soon after, Moon-gil received another report that the third floor was down, surprising him. He thought Hanjun's opponents on the first floor would have overwhelmed him by now. Just as he anticipated the end of the fourth floor, another report arrived, stating that it had also fallen. Moon-young, in the midst of their predicament, suddenly burst into laughter, puzzled by his own good mood during Hanjun's victories. It dawned on him that Moon-gil's confident expression was fading. Moon-gil couldn't believe Moon-young was finding amusement in their current situation. Moon-young questioned Moon-gil's perspective and suggested he step back, as it would soon be their turn. The announcement came that Hanjun had just arrived. Moon-young couldn't help but smirk. Hanjun walked through the hallways, and suddenly, someone attacked him with a knife. Hanjun skillfully dodged the attack and countered by smashing his attacker's face. More attackers showed up, but Hanjun swiftly dealt with them. Finally, he made his way to the rooftop, where Moon-young was sitting like a king, awaiting him. Hanjun inquired about Dongyan's location. Moon-young, rather disdainfully, called Hanjun an idiot and revealed that Dongyan was never at the location in the first place. According to Moon-young, Hanjun had fallen for his plan like a fool. Nets suddenly appeared, trapping Hanjun, and Moon-young's men took advantage of the situation, attacking him mercilessly from different directions. Hanjun could only scream in pain. Suddenly, the sound of motorbikes echoed in the area. Moon-young was surprised to see a group of motorbikes approaching. Dong-yeon asked Seo-hyeon to drop him off in front of the mob. Seo-hyeon stopped the bike, sending Dong-yeon flying. Swiftly, Dong-yeon took down one man with a knee kick. As another attacker approached, a bike drove into his face. It was Insu. He instructed Dong-yeon to go while they dealt with the smaller threats. With powerful strides, Dong-yeon ran with all his might to rescue Hanjun this time. Moon-young couldn't help but curse out Dong-yeon as he made his escape. The ancient crew had kept the men outside occupied. Even though they were called traitors, they managed to hold their ground. A large figure tried to attack them, but Dong-yeon quickly stomped on his feet. Insu directed his men to confront everyone. Dong-yeon cautioned Insu to be vigilant. Someone unexpectedly kicked Insu, but he skillfully blocked the attack in time. It turned out to be Moon-gil. Dong-yeon stepped in and interrupted them. Moon-gil insisted that he didn't have any issues with Dong-yeon and suggested focusing on saving Hanjun first. He claimed he was there to apprehend a traitor. Insu prepared for a fight and urged Dong-yeon to leave. Moon-gil expressed relief as he saw an opportunity to release his pent-up frustration on a willing opponent. The two engaged in a fierce fight without holding back. Moon-young could see that Moon-gil had left him abruptly. He then instructed his men to continue beating up Hanjun, who was ensnared in a net. Frustration overcame Moon-young as he observed his men struggling to hit Hanjun properly. In response, he swung a metal bat widely. Seizing the opportunity, Hanjun used the distraction to tackle Moon-young. Although Moon-young argued that it was too late, he also received a punch from Hanjun simultaneously. Hanjun's head began to bleed, and Moon-young's men intensified their assault. Growing angry, Moon-young seized a screwdriver, attempting to stab Hanjun. In the midst of this, Dong-yeon appeared and kicked Moon-young aside. Hanjun, surprised by Dong-yeon's arrival, claimed he had been toying with his opponents while awaiting him. Together, Hanjun and Dong-yeon retaliated, smashing the faces of Moon-young's men. Moon-young, offended and angry, grabbed a rope and charged toward Dong-yeon. Seizing him, Moon-young pushed Dong-yeon off the rooftop, expressing a desire for him to die. However, Dong-yeon managed to cling to Moon-young's leg, hanging on for dear life. Moon-young began kicking Dong-yeon's face, urging him to stay crippled. Suddenly, Dong-yeon exerted all his strength on his legs, kicking off the wall. The two went flying, and Dong-yeon complained about Moon-young being too talkative. As they descended, Dong-yeon safely broke through a window below, leaving Moon-young hanging with a bleeding face. To Moon-young's surprise, he felt himself being pulled up, only to discover that Hanjun was the one doing the rescuing. Hanjun declared that it was now Moon-young's turn to face a beating. Hanjun forcefully pulled up Moon-young as if he were reeling in a fish. Moon-young went airborne and landed face first on Hanjun's solid fist. He was sent flying, but Hanjun quickly yanked him back. This time, Moon-young's face collided with Hanjun's knees. Hanjun attempted another pull and punch like he was playing yo-yo, but Dong-yeon intervened, telling Hanjun to cool down since he also had unresolved issues with Moon-young. Hanjun reluctantly agreed, giving Dong-yeon 5 minutes. Dong-yeon teased Hanjun for being stingy, and then reminded Moon-young that they still needed to settle their own score. He urged Moon-young to get up for a showdown. Feeling offended and angry, Moon-young threw a punch at Dong-yeon, who swiftly blocked it. Moon-young wondered if Dong-yeon felt like the hero in Revenge Story while casting him as the villain. He pointed out that Dong-yeon, once a weakling, used to blame others for his own shortcomings. As Moon-young continued his nonsensical talk, Dong-yeon seized an opportunity to land a punch on Moon-young's face. Dong-yeon leaped, declaring he was tired of Moon-young's trashy words, and kicked him in the face, emphasizing that Moon-young's questionable methods couldn't be considered a true victory. He labeled Moon-young as a bluff and trash. At that moment, Hanjun threw a punch at Moon-young. Dong-yeon insisted it hadn't been 5 minutes yet. Hanjun said sorry, admitting he couldn't control his anger. Dong-yeon then suggested they both take on Moon-young together. Moon-young, realizing he was in trouble, pleaded for them to wait. Ignoring him, the two attacked simultaneously. Moon-young rolled on the floor, Hanjun kicked, and Dong-yeon stomped on him like he was a rag. Moon-young, desperate, grabbed Dong-yeon's leg and begged for forgiveness, pleading for his life. Hanjun, surprised, handed a crowbar to Dong-yeon, telling Moon-young he shouldn't have started the fight. Dong-yeon stared at the crowbar until he took it and approached Moon-young, who was still pleading. Moon-young promised to reflect on his actions and vowed not to mess with them again. Dong-yeon raised the crowbar, prepared to attack, while Moon-young screamed in fear. However, nothing happened. Instead, a loud thud was heard. Moonyoung opened his eyes, realizing Dongyeon had nearly harmed his future children. Moonyoung was terrified and humiliated. Seeing Moonyoung had made a pool of his own piss, Dongyeon called him pathetic and decided to move on, attempting to leave. Suddenly, a loud cracking sound echoed. Hanjun had broken Moonyoung's leg like it was nothing, declaring that he wouldn't let things go that easily. Shocked, Dongyeon called his best friend crazy. Shortly after, the fighters outside spotted something hanging from the rooftop. It was Moonyoung, dangling from a rope like a discarded trash bag. Moon-gil found it hard to believe that it was all over and decided to surrender, bringing his kids with him. He vowed they would cross paths again. Insu wiped away his own blood, clenching his teeth as Moon-gil's crew left the area. The next morning, Hanjun and Dongyeon observed the sunrise from the rooftop. Dongyeon wondered who their next target would be. With a menacing look, Hanjun declared that it was Cheonsu's turn. The professional gamer was about to experience a beating from Hanjun. That's the complete recap of Season 1. If you liked the series, comment below for more.